most everybody knows me. I'm Command Sergeant Major Brad Brown, retired. And yes, every day is a Saturday. Every day is a Saturday. I love retirement, but I miss the soldiers. So, one thing I always told myself, I love the soldier, and that's why I did it for so long. So you got to tell yourself that. Do I love the soldier enough to keep doing this? And pass that down to the younger generation, which we know get a little bit harder to take care of these days. So that's a challenge for y'all now. That's right. So I was the SEL for the state from 2011 to 2015. General Nichols selected me through the board, or interviews, I guess. Had been the division sergeant major, what do they call it, rear, whenever they were over in Iraq doing their thing. And then from there, I was what we had, SJIADF. Elizabeth Shockley knows well about SJIADF because she kind of started that unit, and then I came over for her whenever she left. From there, it was just, I did have 6 MOSs. So, it was just a matter of going to school to get jobs, okay, pretty much. And that's the way it was. Other than that, accomplishments, I think the biggest one was getting the Air Guard integrated into the best warrior competition. Okay. We had it going for about 3 years before that. Sergeant Major Jim Burles had started it, where we were doing the courses and everything. We're getting away from those damn paper boards. And I just kind of took it up, told General Nichols this is what I'd like to do. He said, run with it. Started talking to the chiefs and came to fruition. Mark kind of brought it up behind me and invited our state partners and started doing it. So I think that was my biggest accomplishment. Did we have hurdles going through there? Yeah. Somebody didn't want to do it. I worked real hard to get him to do it. Yeah, so anyway, other than that, I just love the soldier, and that's how I did it. One thing, telling you guys right now, things I used to do as a first sergeant, which is the best job in the Army, because you get to meld with soldiers there. Once you get up, you're just managers from there. So, other than that, just doing things the Army way. Always remember, the Army, pretty simple job, but it can be pretty hard. Because where else can you go? Army, Air Force, whatever, and they give you a manual to tell you how to do your job. Written on 5th grade level. So, anything you do, the Army has a manual for it. You go to it and find out what you need to do. So, other than that, that's about all I have to say. Most of y'all know me, worked with me many years. Most of you have worked since, way back. I'm old. General Nichols always used to say, there's that one picture in the Building 8 with all the troops on Camp Mabry. That old one, he used to go, Sergeant Major, which one are you in there? Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
I'm Command Chief Kevin O'Gorman. I was the State Command Chief, Senior Supervisor from, I guess, 14 to, no, 12 to 14. Golly, that's the first thing that goes. Deep history, you see Civil Air Patrol here on base. I started Civil Air Patrol in the 60s. So I wore a blue suit there, and in high school I wore a blue suit in ROTC, and the Air Force 74. So I've been in every fight since, except for Grenada and Panama, where they weren't in fights really. But maintenance, aircraft maintenance, day one, C-130s from the 70s. Chief flight engineer, up to 136, in Fort Worth, was in Dallas. And then the 136 command chief, and then was lucky enough to come down here and challenge this year. But I had some great counterparts here that there was some lesson learning from the Army side to our side. Jimmy Broyles did start some of that, open the doors where we communicate a little bit better, because before we wouldn't even address each other hardly. So you go downrange in a hurricane and, I'd see the uniform and I know where you are. So that's why this type of meeting is awesome. You take every advantage to it, so you get to know your counterpart, at least know their face. Get downrange and go, okay, I know him, I know the state court, because I know they're always in your midst too. The interaction that we changed between the air and the green, when we took up the mantle for it, whether it was the marksmanship, whether it was the best warrior, crosstalk, doing some of the joint things together, which we've never done before. It was funny. We do the same mission in a lot of ways, but we were doing it two different, parallel to each other. I think now that has changed, that culture's changed. I mean, we've got, our leadership is all different uniforms all the way through. Doesn't make a difference, damn big difference. So I appreciate everybody came out last night. We had a good, pretty good event, and a little fun and fellowship. Get to know each other. When you go on stations down in, whether it's, I'll talk about the air side. You go to the 3 air wing stations, check in, say hello, get to know people. Just like we'll do when we go to the armory. I've been in quite a few of the armories. I always told people I was the state command chief for Texas military forces. I never really said I was the air guy. They knew I was because of the blue uniform, but I tried to mentor and do everything I could with the whole group because I felt that important that he was doing. General Nichols was his guy, and you see what that boss is. So other than that, that's all I have to say.
Can you hear me? Is that good? Right there? So I'm Command Sergeant Major retired Mark Wheaton, and I was the Command Senior Enlisted Leader from 2015 to 2017. I just retired a little over a year ago. And I came up through active duty, started out in active duty and came to the Guard, and what Brian said a while ago about, the active duty looks down on the Guard. I know there's a lot of former active duty folks that came in, probably had the same experience I was, thought it was the biggest mistake I ever made because I didn't understand it. It wasn't the same speed. I came right out of the 2nd Airborne to the tank battalion, and so I thought tanks were evil anyway. And but I went on my first state mission, and we drove our trucks back down into the Trinity River bottom and pulled some river rats out that thought they were going to stay, and pulled people off the top of a house in rushing water and changed their mindset. And I knew from then on I was a Guard guy. And I've had many of arguments over the years with active duty folks, polite arguments, with the commitment and the dedication that the Guard guys have. And I'll be honest, I had a little attitude about the State Guard when I first met them because I became a readiness NCO, and that was my armory that they were occupying. On weekends we weren't there. And they like to move stuff around like grandkids. I like to come and see the desk around. So, but once I got to know them better, and it was just like a transition from active duty to the Guard. Once I allowed myself to get to know them and get to know the missions that they're doing and the dedication, their dedication. I say all the time, I've said it since when I was a CCEL, those are really the only true patriots, because they're the ones really, we're getting paid for it. They may not be getting paid a lot, but when we start ranking patriotism, they are on the top of the realm as far as I'm concerned. And so I do appreciate you guys. I appreciate this whole learning process from active duty to the Guard. Learning both the air. The air was, that was, I tried to join the Air Force during Desert Storm, or right after Desert Storm, because I saw the way they lived. And the way I was living, like a pig, and the Air Force rejected me without even thinking about it.
And stinkers.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's what they said back then, too. But anyway, I've enjoyed getting to know, and I guess that it just kind of getting to know the air when I came on as the CISO. That was my main. I told General Nichols that was kind of my main function because I already know the Army. I know the Guard. I spent time, and you talked about advantages of how you get to this place. I got here because there were no other candidates. Everybody fired or dropped out. Didn't have any other option. That's how I got it. But really, when it comes to being competitive, there's two things that I always did throughout my career. From about middle career above, it's like, when I get a new assignment, I know I'm going to be here for 2 to 5 years. That's just the Army way. So I don't have one foot out the door already, but I'm already looking at the next step. What is the next step? Not that I'm not putting 100% in here, because I always did that, but I'm always trying to prepare for the next step and look for that next step, because I don't want to miss an opportunity when that next step presents itself, and then I'm that guy that's been here for too long, and then they come in and they're trying to work around me. So that's one thing that I would share. I always moved around. It was every 2 to 5 years. I was taking a different assignment, away from home a lot of times, even when I came to the Guard. I went in and out of recruiting, tell recruiters all the time, don't become a permanent recruiter, get in and out of the battalion. I was in and out of the battalion 4 times before I finally was able to lead the battalion and come up to the RTI, and to not go back to the battalion. And I think that makes you very competitive, because then, once you get to the EA level, and we need to be teaching our senior leaders this, you're going to, if you're a combat arms guy, it's the model now. You're going to go over and do some support time. If you're a support, you're going to go over and do some combat arms time. And so you might as well just allow yourself to understand that and learn that and teach that, because when it comes right down to it, those folks are just as dedicated. They're doing just as an important a mission at the time that it requires that mission. So those are some of the things I think that really helped me to get to being selected, because there was nobody else to be selected, but just to put in for it, because I was always constantly looking for what's that next step and where can I go and serve at a greater capacity. And I think that's important. And then the other thing I'll tell you, I think, and this is probably more prevalent than in any other time, and that's education. Y'all know I work for a university now because I was looking for what that next step is. I knew it was coming, and when it came, I was ready for it, and I know the organization was ready for it as well. But education is critical. Our soldiers and airmen are not going to get any less educated. Now, they might get less smart with all the social media and all the at their touch capabilities and technologies that they have, but they're not going to get any less educated. And so I would just tell you that, that's one of the things the Army, I took advantage of in the Army. I would encourage you to do the same thing, and encourage your Joes and Josephines to do the same thing, because when you get out, or when you get ready to get out, they don't give a rat's butt what you did, or who you served, or what sort of major you were, command chief, or platform you worked on. In the civilian world, your education level matters. And it may not matter to you until you start talking negotiation, your salary. Okay? I'll tell you, I've been in education the whole 20 years. It took me 20 years to get my bachelor's degree. And I didn't finish my master's degree before I got out. And I'll tell you, just that degree, same position, same title, same responsibility, I left 15 grand a year on the table because I hadn't finished my master's degree yet. Okay, so just put that in your pocket, and I got my master's degree now, and I'm working on my other master's degree, trying to finish that up. But I would just tell you, you've got a tremendous opportunity, and I know there's some old dogs out there that are like, hey, I haven't done it up to this point. There's some things you can do. If nothing else, teach your folks to do that and stay up with the times and keep yourself relevant. because you cannot influence, and that's leadership, you cannot influence people that you don't have the ability to influence because of the education gap. Okay? And I know there's an experience gap there, I'm not taking away from that, but just those are the things I think that really, as I look back over my career. And I'll tell you, as you transition, and then I'm going to shut up, but as you transition, be prepared, because transition is difficult. Even if you go into a good situation, keep up with those folks in your ranks that have transitioned, if you can. I know it's a lot to ask, but when you step out of this capacity, it's taken me, I left the uniform March the 24th or 5th, 4th, I think it. Anyway, that's the last day I put the uniform on, was my retirement ceremony year. Just this week, so that's over a year, just this week, if I started to feel like I'm a civilian. I had a conversation with my wife on Wednesday this week, as I was sitting out drinking coffee on Wednesday.
Every day Saturday.
But just this week did I tell my wife, and I really start to feel like I'm okay out here, I belong. I don't feel like I'm a civilian again. I don't feel like I'm, retiring or transitioning. I feel like it's taken over a year, and I left in a very good situation. And so your folks that leave that are not in a good situation, or that retire think the grass is greener and it's not, because a lot of times it's not, or things fall through, keep in touch with them, because that is why I believe that the lack of purpose, because no matter if you go to work and there's nothing on the agenda, you put that uniform on, you have a purpose. When you leave the uniform, that's where you got to redefine that purpose, and that's what causes 22 a day, is the lack of purpose, and just not feeling like, not being able to transition to feel like I'm okay being a civilian. That's very difficult to do. So I would just say, keep in touch with those folks even after they leave the uniform. And I am always available I come to Austin about once a week. I stay connected. I'm working on the suicide task force with Colonel McGregor and some other folks to try to help figure this monster out and see if we can put some brakes and start to reduce that number and really start to help people transitioning and going through some things that are causing that. But I am always available 24/7, 365 to talk to you about transition, to come to your units and talk about transition, to talk about education, to talk about purpose, just to talk about whatever it is to try to help eliminate some of this and help people get better prepared to make the transition, because it's a difficult transition. Even at the best circumstance, a difficult transition. So anyway, enjoyed my time. I do, like Brad said, I haven't missed being in uniform at all. I haven't. I have missed you. I've missed these moments like this. But I get to stay connected. I come back and I get to, pop shot in and stay connected. So that's really helped me a lot. But I just tell you, the greatest Americans, there's no question about it. I appreciate what you do every day.
All right, I'm Chief Master Sergeant Marlon Nation, retired. Had the honor of serving as the State Command Chief of the Air National Guard from 2014 to 2018. The biggest hurrah was, the biggest event was Harvey and being mobilized, part of that. The way I got here was, well, first of all, let me say this, because I want to get this out on the table, because sometimes I think that it's forgotten. We live in the most spectacular, if not the greatest country on the planet, without saying. I have taken democracy by the throat and tried to squeeze every bit of it out. And the majority of my life, that was in uniform. I have the privilege now, in fact, I went from the classroom on Thursday teaching about the Constitution to sit before you this morning, defenders of the Constitution, as a history professor. And I saw the slide earlier that said that the military is still the most favorably recognized group of individuals that are out there. And the biggest challenge I have in the classroom is they want to hear war stories and about the military versus, I don't know, it might be the Federalist Papers or whatever the case may be, but they want to hear about those type stories more than they do about the subject at hand. But I don't want it to go unrealized or what's unsaid, that what you do, most people don't know what you do. You're kind of behind a veil, but they have the utmost respect for you. When I came in, I didn't know the difference between a first sergeant and a staff sergeant. I was green, I got on the bus, I traveled from Houston to San Antonio, and my world changed instantly. I mean, instantly it changed. And I've never looked back, never looked back. Had an opportunity to do some amazing things and been some places that there's no way in the world I would have gotten there had it not been for the military. My philosophy has always been, if you believe you can, you're probably right. If you believe you can't, you're probably right also. But I've always had this indebtedness to those who came before me. Several mentors here on stage, and I've always tried to look back and bring those behind me forward as well, because it's important. Because as you know, we are only temporary caretakers of an organization that's going to extend throughout eternity. Well, maybe not eternity, but for the foreseeable future. And we have a responsibility when we are at the helm that we do the best that we can. The biggest change that I saw while I was in is that communication is now at the speed of light. I can communicate to somebody with India just as quick as I can communicate with somebody across the street. And it's public. Everything is out. Everything is available. So when you say something or do something, it could be to your detriment or it could be to your benefit. We're having to keep that in mind. That was the most significant change that happened while I was in. I'm an old F4 grease pencil guy. I cut my teeth on F4s. But now with email and Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter and all of that stuff, it has a tremendous benefit, but there's also perils as well. I don't regret not 1 minute of service in the uniform. Do I miss it? I miss it when I'm among those like you who are wearing a uniform. I miss it when I see operations around the world. I miss it when there's events, all that sort of thing, because I know what it takes to handle or deal with an event like that. It's not just, oh, I turn on TV, it happened one day, I turn off the TV, it's done. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, and you all know that. So my only advice is realize that what you're doing is a tremendous asset to the country and to the families out there. Never take that patriotism that people walk up to you and say, hey, my uncle was in so-and-so, or I appreciate what you're doing. Never take that for granted, because everybody's got a story. Everybody in uniform has a story. Everybody out of uniform has a story. And I try to give everybody who wants my opinion an opportunity, or who wants to talk to me, try to give them an opportunity. I owe them to listen to them. So I could go on, and I would normally, but I know we're in time constraints, so I'm going to pass that on to Sergeant Major Hoxie.
Good afternoon. So, Sergeant Major Hoxie, retired, aka every day's a Saturday. Enjoying life, and I served in the position from 14 to 16 as a Texas Army National Guard CSM. Came into the military, the Army, in 1986. Joined up as a Cavalry Scout, served 8.5 years on active duty, various units from cavalry to infantry, and decided to get out and try to go to college. So, being an out-of-state resident from Texas, I found out that you could go to school, tuition, state tuition being from out of state, through the Guard, I wouldn't get charged that extra money. So I said, well, try out the Texas National Guard. And just like Sergeant Major Wheaton, I got to my unit and had some reservations, and like, whoa, things were a little bit different than what I was used to. But I continued on with it and figured out this unit that I'm assigned to is a really good unit, especially when I got out to the field with them. I was like, these guard guys know what they're doing. They take it pretty serious when they hit the wood line. So I stuck it out and ended up being ADOS for a little bit, and then to keep a long story short, ended up coming on AGR and served in some really good units in the Texas Army National Guard, being AGR. So made it up to this position that I retired from, and I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed every minute of being in the Texas Army National Guard compared to what I dealt with in the regular Army, and how I saw the Texas Army National Guard grow and become better and better with deployments and the experience that I was to the point when I got into the Texas Army National Guard CSM position that I would argue with any regular Army sergeant major that we could hold our own against them, for sure. So that was nice, you know, coming up through the ranks and seeing how we were beginning to evolve as an organization. Some of the things that I tried to do when I was in the position was bring our senior NCOs into a closer tight-knit and start working with each other for the betterment of the organization, to include, you know, our M-Day guys and our full-time guys, integrating them together. I hope that we're continuing that so that the organization just gets better. Things from the scorecard, you know, we're looking at our percentages and making sure that our school stuff is being taken care of for our young soldiers and our young NCOs, to APFTs, which, oh, by the way, I just looked at that on military.com. Whoa. That's tough. Good, but tough. So I commend y'all as you negotiate through that.
It wasn't necessarily the commander, it was the command, the staff, bringing the staff. At this level, we are responsible for mentoring not only a commander maybe, but also the staff, and the relationship between the staff NCO and the staff officer. And so I had several units where that was a particular challenge. But I'll tell you, the biggest challenge for me, and this won't come to a surprise for those of you who know me for a long time, was me. Growing up, knowing what I thought I knew, being young and dumb and full of vinegar and, you know, water and all that stuff, and having been successful to a certain extent part of the way through my career, and I tell people this all the time, what got you to about E7 is not going to get you to E8 and E9 and beyond, because it's a different skill set required. And for me, the skill set, and for everybody, that skill set, the difference really is interpersonal skills. And I lacked the interpersonal skills because my problem was it was my world and it was my way or the highway. And until I realized through personal challenges that the world really didn't evolve around me, and that other people had feelings and they had ideas and they weren't just a cog in my wheel, they were part of the solution, and that we could all be part of the solution. And only then was I able to overcome probably the biggest challenge in my career, which was myself at the time. And I could go back and talk about combat situations or other specific situations, but I think those two in general for this audience is prevalent for me, because that's what really was the biggest challenge to overcome.
So I want to go back to his question. He was talking about leadership challenges, and I was sitting here thinking about, you know, some of the things that I dealt with as a battalion CSM versus as the Texas Army National Guard CSM. And I mean, if you look at it, it's like one, at the battalion level, it's a micro level of leadership issues that you're dealing with. And in the Army CSM position, it's at that macro level. When I say macro, it's macro. the things that I dealt with at a battalion was, like he was saying earlier, syncing the staff and officer personalities and staff NCO personalities and things like that. And that was always a challenge, trying to get those people to work together for that one goal of completing the mission. But at the Army CSM position, I think one of the biggest challenges I had leadership-wise was not getting caught up in the small minutia, which can happen. Again, you're at the macro level and you're having to deal with all of the issues that are going on across the state. And a lot of times that squirrel pops up and you start chasing it and you start losing focus of the whole organization. That was one of the challenges or leadership challenges that I had to deal with when I was coming into positions, being back up and kind of look at the whole organization and talk to the command sergeant majors out there to deal with the problems versus me trying to grab hold of it myself and do it at that level. So you had me reflecting on that when you asked that question.
So what I'm learning from the three of you is that the first one is you have to look at the whole picture, see what the tool you have, and how can you use those tools and improve the fuel to keep it moving. So for you, Mayor, I would say it's not about us, and that's a thing that is a common thing that we see around, that we believe that because we are the same to everything else, and rules don't apply to us. If we are leaders, we'll still have to be engaged and listen, because we never know when we're gonna learn from the person giving the back, from the PFC that just came out of basic training. So if we, instead of be do because I say so and I hold the rank, if we become listeners, we become better leaders, because we are innovative, we are adaptive. And I get over from you, so I think that we need to, depending on who you want to use that, not delegate and focus on your level and let the people on you focus on that. Thank you.
It's all about those down below you that we serve. And that, always.
Or many more.
All right, so over the past 2.5 days or so, had quite a few different subjects, two of which I thought were interesting were the innovation and also the PAO brief that we got this morning, just because of the so many different ways that we communicate now across different platforms and the different mechanisms within those platforms themselves. But also thinking about how much the military has changed, even since you gentlemen have retired, but most certainly since we all enlisted. You know, so my question then is, I guess, like, what do you think about maintaining relevance? How important is that in our current jobs to have to evolve with the organization, keep up with trends, new knowledge, development, growth, education, so that we in turn are able to better mentor, develop, and train our airmen and soldiers? I mean, so basically, how important do you think relevance is for the older generation, right? And at what point, I mean, would you personally think that if you don't think you can be relevant, that you need to step out of the way?
Yeah, social media, it's not going away, you know, and all of that. Technology, as you know, changes every single day. Luke, just like you said, if you don't want to stay relevant with the system and keep doing the things you want to do, absolutely, time to go. Yeah, you're not willing to learn anymore, so I think you got to stay relevant. All of us had to stay relevant with all the changes that were going on while we were in. Because if you didn't, you were just stupid. Somebody had asked you something and you lied.
Well, I mean, just not like the technology piece of it. I mean, but for example, we just did, we had group PRT, yesterday morning? But not necessarily the PRT, but the new Army Combat Fitness Test. That's gonna require everyone in this room to become relevant, educated, knowledgeable on that new test, right? In order to then go back, train our units, our soldiers to be successful when it's implemented. So I'm talking about across the entire spectrum of maintaining your relevancy and how important that is, what you guys think that is.
You know, I'll give you one big piece of advice. When I started, when I was 89 and started moving into these positions, and it was from a lieutenant colonel. And he said, you know, you slid by staying flat-footed and being with the troops the whole time, and that's awesome. As Mark said earlier, you can go from E7 to E8. There's a big shift change there. And he pointed out, he said, you know, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You need to be able to find the answer to everything that's asked or thrown against you. So I spent a lot of nights with regulations and finding stuff that I thought that I was wrong in the first place. But the relevance there is that you lead and set the standard. You have to be able to answer that standard and know which way to go. The kids are looking up at us and they're asking, well, what do I do for this particular thing? If they got it on their screen, they can look it up right then and there. And boy, you want to lose face real quick is give some wrong information. And in the old days, how many times did we have P9s and chiefs, command sergeant majors that said something and it's like, that's not what the book said. It changed 2 years ago and you have to get the staying relevant is exactly what it means. If you're going to evolve, if you're not moving forward every single day, you're backing up. You've got to stay, you don't have to be on Twitter, Facebook, all of them, Snapchat. You need to be cognizant of them. How many times when you go into seeing the troops getting ready to deploy, you look around, you see all these young kids and they're all sitting there, they're not talking to each other, they're on their, and then you'll see 20 of them laugh at the same time, and you're like, they're talking to each other on the device while they're sitting in the same room. And interpersonal communications, it's lost. We have some instances today on promotions, on the air side, when we brought you in and we did a promotion interview. At the end of that interview, we would stop and say, okay, interview's over. We're going to give you a couple pointers. We gave it right then, real time. You know, you presented yourself well to the board. You know, your uniform looks pretty good, or you need this a little bit. It's probably a little bit too big. You need to lose that. How's your weight standard going? But give us some really direct information about what was relevant to their interview, because we found guys and gals at E8, E9 that would come in an interview and you'd go, holy moly, how did they sneak under that mushroom all this time? And they couldn't even get a sentence out correctly or tell us what they did. So stay relevant. I'm sure NCOs underneath them stay relevant too. If you start talking about, did you see in the Army news about such and such, or we've got new uniforms coming in, or we've got the new medical part of this, those are very relevant things going today, and that's what the kids are looking at too, because they're seeing all their media right there. And so you need to stay up on that. You have to be an immediate giant, but you need to be able to be aware. And if you don't know it, if you didn't understand the PAO briefing this morning about Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and all like that, you've got some kids that work for you that sure as hell know it. I pull them aside and say, look, walk me through some of this and what's good and what's bad. We used to find people that we would lose the drill, they'd be gone for 2 or 3 months. When Facebook first come out, we'd see people go on Facebook immediately, and we'd find them, and then we'd send the sheriff over to get them. That was a great tool for us when it first came out.
That's relevant.
That's very relevant. So, and you know, you want to see the schools are doing the same thing. Marlin is the president there. Is when they sit there and talk about it on entry into college, and they're looking at their Facebook page about how they've been drinking 3 nights in a row and get stoned or whatever else. Same thing in the military. We're looking at that, and that's a good way to find it. So you got to keep up with what's going on.
I think that it's incumbent on all senior NCOs to stay relevant. If you don't, your soldiers are going to notice, and your peers are going to notice. And if you get to that point, it's time to go home. So it's that simple. Anything that has to do with the Army or the Air Force, you gotta stay relevant. It's pretty simple.
Our craft is built on, and I'm talking E9, E8, E9, the command level positions. Not at this level, but I'm talking at the battalion, and it doesn't matter. Is built on influence. And to me, that's the key. And when in order to influence, you have to be relevant. And it strikes me back to when you're a kid and your grandfather says something that was relevant in 1940 when the Depression was going on and they were eating, stuff left over. Every piece of a cow that was hit by a car, you used every single piece of that cow. And you who've never been hungry or never missed a meal, it wasn't relevant to you. And you rolled your eyes at Grandpa, and you didn't really get the relevance until later in life. And you went through history and all that kind of stuff. And it's the same way. Our troops are the same way. If you're talking about stuff that is not relevant anymore, they're rolling their eyes and walking away, and you have failed to influence them. And when you fail to influence, somebody needs to influence you to leave, like somebody actually said, because it is inherent. And it's our system. We pass it down. That's why you got us back in here today. You're teaching and mentoring people under you right now, and so forth and so on. And this stuff just keeps flowing down to the new recruits that are coming in. That's this whole system. If we ever stop being relevant at this level, collectively, we're in a world of hurt. We have a more relevant seat at the command table right now. We sit at the general officer huddle on Monday mornings. You have an NCO representative at that table right now. Every Monday morning, I think. Do you go every Monday morning?
Yes.
Okay. So if we lose our relevancy, we lose the ear of the commander. You know as well as I do, there are two types of, I'll just say sergeant majors, command chiefs, I'm sure it's the same way. There are two types of sergeant majors. There's the type who can make things happen and get things done, and people listen to, and then there's the figurehead who's not relevant and everybody listens and then blows it off. And we can't afford to have those on the second one I mentioned anymore, because we lose the faith of not only the people we lead and the ability to influence, just as importantly at this level, you lose the ability to influence the officers who are making decisions that are going to affect the soldiers under your lives. And so I think that's, to me, that's the relevance. And so we got to police our own. There's some hard decisions. I know we have all had conversations behind closed doors up in that office about, hey, somebody, so-and-so needs to go. Great American, but so-and-so needs to go. I will share this with you. It was timing. I was looking for the opportunity, but one of the factors to my departing, when I had opportunities to move up in the overall organization for the National Guard, was a physical relevance issue. And I'm thankful now that I saw the PRT come out. So I think relevance is very critical.
Let me give you some rubber meets the road type stuff on relevancy, because I think we all know what it means. Am I still making a difference? Am I staying connected? Am I staying engaged? But when you start to hear stuff like when you're trying to influence a group of people and they say, yeah, in essence, I hear you, and then they walk away and say, well, that's just Chief Nation's way. This is how it really is, just Chief Nation's way. And another thing is when your dreams when your accomplishments and the things that you've done for the military or the things that you've done for your organization become more important to you than steering the organization where you know it should go, then you need to start checking your motivations. When it's more important to tell war stories and what you did back in so-and-so than, okay, here's where the future lies, that's when you need to start looking around. Okay.
So, I got a question. When you were in your position as you're representing up there now, you probably have a plate full of initiatives that you would like to have done in order to change the organization that you wrote, whether that was a TMD or Army or Air. And that list of initiatives, I guarantee you didn't get to some of those. So if you look back on that list and you understand what the organization is today based on maybe having kept up a little bit, what is one initiative that you would have liked to have done that you were not able to undertake that would have benefited the organization as a whole? Does that make sense?
I think some of the training program, you know, you get a flood of things, especially when you become an E9 or a command sergeant major or chief. The world has changed around you. Now everyone's looking up at you on that part of it. And I had a real defined list of things when I sit in the audience here and went, well, you know, I would change this, I would do this, or I'd like to fix this, or I've seen it as I've gone along, I just want to tweak that state regulation a little bit. And I brought that all in when I walked in the door. And I worked very diligently. Everyone knew me, I always had Post-it notes every damn place. That's before I had my phone that I could put it on. You keep working those, but yeah, you're right. When you walk out the door, there's always more left. But it's about the main thing I try always look at. There's things that I could fight or that I had influence over that I could fix. And I worked harder on them than I did where it was coming down from national or something like that. But it's always about taking care of the airman or the soldier. Always. Every day I was in the office, every day I was in the job, which is 365, by the way, no matter where I was. It was about what's going to make the influence on the soldier or airman. That's where you got to stay true to it. And yeah, you walk out the door with a long list, and I handed it over to Marlon when I walked out, and he's handed it over to Chris when he walked out, or when he walked in. And things that ebbs and flows and that you fix. So, yeah, you should be looking at this now. You never know. You could get the nod tomorrow. I think everybody in this room is eligible at some point to move into a different position, an advisory position. You should look and see things within a realm that if you were in that position or you're aspiring to be, that you can make a difference. And then, of course, the number one thing is just get out and about, talk to your troops. I mean, I can't stress that enough. And, you know, we touched on it, but officers, I trained a lot of officers. Nichols, you know, when he was a lieutenant colonel. So you know the General McMinn, General Farrell, my boss, General Wesion, all of them. Wasn't Red Brown though, no. For the most part, is you're always training them, always bringing them up to speed on what's going on and keeping the list of things. That's what we did as advisors. But you should be doing that with a lieutenant. Get a new lieutenant in the office. You should be working on that. Because you know what? That comes back to you. It does. I've heard many stories. Well, I remember when he was a little pissant, you know, second lieutenant, and now he's a lieutenant colonel over a battalion or division or something like that, and he's got a thing of influence. Well, I've got this relationship I built that works. So there's always going to be a list. Take what you can and do what you can.
So there's two things that I didn't get accomplished, and I'm not sure where they're at. But one of them was to get the State Guard involved in the best warrior competition. It's very difficult, I understand that, but getting we all have seen the effects, and we're sitting in the effects of what it does to the organization as far as the jointness, how it opens your eyes to the Air Force from the Army side and the Army to the Air Force side, and kind of does away with some of those, I don't know, those macho, whatever, you know, BS stuff that we talk about the other service, because we don't understand it. And so that was one of the things that I really wanted to get, was to get the State Guard involved in that competition, because I think it really, it changes the culture. It changes our culture. And the State Guard is a very integral part of the Texas Military Department, a very valuable part of the Texas Military Department, yet most people still don't understand it. And I think it would be a huge eye-opening And it would travel all the way down to the lowest level very quickly if that could happen. So that's one thing that I didn't get accomplished. And then the other thing I think is in terms of NGAT and the enlisted influence with NGAT and the enlisted, and INGUS, but INGUS is at the national level, NGAT is our state level, and we had to take care of NGAT first, then INGUS, obviously INGUS too. But to have the level of, we're the largest National Guard in the nation, and we have one of the smallest enlisted associations. And that comes from some attitudinal personality BS stuff that's happened over the years, and I think we're beyond that now. But it's been time for us to get back involved, and INGAT can do a tremendous service, does a tremendous service already, but can do a tremendous service to the enlisted association. You start talking about, and I'm talking specifically on the junior enlisted as well, to get more involvement at NGAT, to get a robust, and I'm still working with Chief Cornetius to help get a robust NCO professional development at NGAT, so that there's some value other than the hospitality rooms, which has a value, but there's a lot more value that can be had for a very robust non-commissioned officer development program on both the Army Air and the State Guard side as well. So those are two things that I think if I had been able to stay around longer, then I would have tried to finish those things.
Here's my thing on objectives and tasks and goals and so forth, because there's a ton of them that I'd have liked to have seen to fruition, come to fruition. One would be a more robust rotation of wing leadership through the state to see how things actually work. But also I want to say that, don't be afraid to undertake those things that you won't see the end of. If it's a good idea, you set that seed. You may not see the end of it. You may not see the time when we totally revamp the promotion system. But that doesn't mean you don't think it's a good idea and you want to give some oomph to it. The heavy lifting may be 2 or 3 years down the road. But simply because you don't see, or you can't see the end state of your idea, that doesn't mean you don't undertake it. Okay.
So I think for me, one of the things that I wanted to see a lot of improvement in was the scorecard criteria, especially on the individual level. Because besides state active duty missions, our mission in the Texas Army National Guard is to fight and win our nation's wars, right? So to me, as senior NCOs, we need to provide the most ready soldiers that we can. So that was kind of my push on the scorecard, and the individual things like duty MOSQ and APFT and the IWQ, and all those things that qualify your soldier as being ready and deployable. I thought that if we could get to that point where our numbers were that high at the national level and NGB, we could show them that Texas has ready forces. We're ready to go. And what does that do for the officers? Well, for the commanders, if we're bringing in all these ready troops into the MOB platform, then the focus is just collective training. It's getting ready for the fight. But a lot of times, we're not in that position. We get to the MOB platform, and we're still trying to take care of those IWQs and APFTs and things like that. So that was one of the things that I wanted to see us improve on when I was in the position, was getting those individual training tasks and those percentages up so that we showed we had ready forces.
Hey, Sergeant Major, ironically,
Right here.
scorecards were passed out yesterday.
Okay, I know we wanted to ask for a question on other bottom information. Yes, sir.
Okay. What you were talking about, Steve, when you go into a position like that, you have a list of things you would like to get done. But there's only a few you can accomplish, because you gotta remember, a lot of those take time, that take teams to help accomplish that, is what you would like to get done. So you might start something, heck, I'm gone, I'm hoping the next guy takes it up and keeps working on that, because, you know, you gotta build a team around to get the concept of what you wanna do and then get it